Alright, so we're taking a look at trig functions, but we're finding angle measures now. So trig functions are still the same. We have SOHCAHTOA. So fractions are the same, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent opposite over adjacent. Okay? So we're still going to set it up and start the same way. So when I'm looking at finding this measure of angle x, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so from x we're labeling O and H. So what's my opposite side? 3. And what's my hypotenuse? 5. Here's my 90. So that's my fraction. So sine of x equals 3 over 5. Now, how do I solve for that? Normally we end up dividing, right? It's like we're dividing here by sine. Okay? But if you look at your calculator, right above sine you see this little thing that says sine -1. Okay? So this -1 exponent really means it's 1 over sine. It's like we're dividing. Does everyone understand that? Ever see that? So right above the trig functions you see this sine -1. This sine -1 is what we're using here instead of division. So that's what we're typing in. We're hitting sine -1 or inverse sine, and in the parentheses we're taking 3 divide 5. So when we type that in, 36.87 or 9, yep, 36.9. And that's what we get out of our calculator. And again, if we have all three sides, you can pick and choose which angle or which side you want to use. Okay? If we're using cosine, now we're looking at that A over H. So 4 is my A. So we have 4 over hypotenuse, which is 5. Again, we're using that inverse. So cosine -1, 4 divided 5 is what we're plugging in our calculator. And we should get exact same answer, right? Because the angle didn't change. 36.9. Okay. Again, if you don't get 36.9, let me know. Because sometimes, especially if you have a graphing calculator. Okay. If you have a graphing calculator, you can kind of get mixed up sometimes with radians. And then tangent, well, tangent's opposite over adjacent, so opposite side is 3, adjacent side is 4, so we're typing in inverse tangent, so second tangent, 3/4. And again, we should get the exact same measurements, 36.9 degrees. Now, how would I find the other angle measure if I want to find the other angle measure? I could do the same thing, but again, all triangles add up to 180. I know that's 90. If this is 36.9, right? So I could do the calculations with trig, or I could subtract it from 90, and we get what, 53.1 or something like that. Okay. So once you find the 1, because the other's a 90, you can subtract them from 90 and you should get pretty close to that answer. Again, it may be off by a little bit because of rounding. Well, what if I want to find y? So if I'm looking here, here's my y. What sides do we want to use? 3 and 4. So if we're using 3 and 4, let's label them. 3 is my what and 4 is my what? 3 is my adjacent, 4 is my opposite. So O and A uses what? Tan. So tangent of the angle measure equals opposite over adjacent. So then to solve, we're typing in inverse tangent of 4 over 3. What is it? 53.1. And again, so we can use trig to find that other angle measure, just like we did there. You could also subtract it from 90, and you can see we got the same answer for both. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the back. A couple problems, work some problems here on the back. So, D is the angle we're trying to find. I'll label it X. Okay. So if I have 8 and 12, what are those two sides? What's my 8, what's my 12? 8 is my adjacent, 12 is my hypotenuse. So AH uses what? Cosine. So cosine, we'll put in X equals adjacent 8 over hypotenuse 12. So we're using that inverse cosine. 8 over 12, and what do we get? 48.2? 48.2 degrees. And again, you're going to end up rounding a lot of these. Okay? So, they may tell you to round to the nearest whole number. They may tell you to round to the nearest tenth. Okay? Now we want to try and find E in number 2. So let's label my angles. 23 and 25, what are they? 23 is opposite and 25 is hypotenuse. So OH uses sine. So sine of my angle measure, opposite 23 over hypotenuse 25. So inverse sine 23 over 25. Type it in our calculator, what do we end up with? 67? Exact?
Oh, no, it's
Rounded up to about 67 degrees. And we're going to take a look here at angle F. There's my X at angle F. So we have 60 and 47. What are those two sides? Opposite is my 60, adjacent is my 47. So OA uses tangent. So tangent of my angle measure, X equals opposite 60 over 47. Again, inverse tangent now. 60 over 47. And what do we get in the calculator? 52?
Yeah,
Rounded up to 52 degrees. Again, it's all based on setup. As long as you can label it correctly and you remember what sine, cosine, or tangent to use, it's all calculator stuff. Okay? So using that inverse, that second sine, second cosine, second tangent. Okay? Let's take a look at a couple word problems and then we're done. It says the top of an 18-foot water slide is 14 feet above the ground. What angle does the slide make with the vertical ladder. So again, let's label this. So here's my angle that I'm trying to make, label, angle with the ladder. So we have 14 and 18. What are those two sides?
Opposite and
Adjacent and hypotenuse. So 14 is adjacent, 18 is my hypotenuse. So AH is looking at what, Trig? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine of my angle equals adjacent 14 over hypotenuse. So second cosine 14 over 18, and that angle should be what? 39? So about 39 degrees. And one more word problem. So tracking a rocket launch. At what angle must the camera at point N be aimed to photograph a rocket at point 0 or O? Okay, so you can see the distances here. 3 kilometers away from the rocket ship. Rocket's going straight up. 5 kilometers high is where we want to take that picture. So here's our angle that we're looking at. So the angle of that camera. Okay, so tangent, because we have opposite and adjacent. Okay, so tangent of x equals my opposite, which is 5 over adjacent 3. So let's second tangent. So inverse tangent of 5 over 3 gives me what degree measure? About 59 degrees to get that picture up at point O. Okay, so that's finding angles.